1973 Supercar of the Year, Pontiac GTO, SD366, and SD455. The Pontiac Le Mans GTO got a slick, strong, and silent new Colonnade pillar hardtop body last year when the GTO replaced the GT37 as the Young Bucks budget supercar, with the fancy Grand Am becoming the flagship model. It doesn't include the bucket seats and upscale interior that have long been standard on the GTO. There's a 3-speed stick standard, a lame attempt at maintaining the base price in the face of President Nixon's whip inflation now price freeze. But you do get dual exhaust with chrome tips, G60 tires on 15 by 7 inch wheels, rear anti-sway bar, NASA, also known as NACA hood ducts, black grille with a GTO badge, and GTO decals on the fenders and trunk. Last year's standard 250 horsepower 400 has been replaced by a 230 horsepower 400, but there's an optional lightweight small block 250 horsepower Super Duty 366 that's a detuned version of Pontiac's new NASCAR engine. In our silver GTO tester, it improved handling immensely. Last year's 300 horsepower HO 455 is supplanted by a 310 horsepower Super Duty 455 like in our black test car. Both Super Duty mills feature polished ports and valves, forged pistons and connecting rods, reinforced blocks and high-flow heads. As the other mid-size supercars get softer, weaker, and more expensive, the GTO has gotten stronger and more affordable. As a result, we've chosen the 73 GTO with either of the new Super Duty engines as Performance Car of the Year. The 8-track stereo was the priciest luxury option on the 455 test car, but it had the frumpy standard steering wheel. The 455 V8 car had an excellent performance turbo-hydromatic with a 2.5-to-1 torque converter ratio, quicker, harder shifting, and a 5,000 RPM shift point tuned perfectly for the SD engine. The strong pillar hardtop Colonnade design allows for very thin A-pillars. Le Mans Sport includes inside hood release, nylon loop pile carpeting, and louvered quarter windows. Both test cars had Le Mans Sport's no-cost option of bucket seats. NACA hood ducts draw cool air into the air cleaner, but cold air is already drawn in through the regular outside air induction ducting. We feel the GTO is a fine-looking chariot with just enough sexy trim to avoid going over the top and attracting too much attention from the fuzz. Without mag wheels, the 73 Goat really blends in. Some of us thought it blended in too much. But Baby Moon hubcaps are part of the equipment cut that allows the Goat to conform to Nixon's price freeze. The base Chevelle and Camaro SS also use them. They mean $87 in savings versus the Rally 2 wheels and $123 versus the polyurethane-coated honeycomb wheels. If it were up to us, we'd add the honeycomb wheels. They give the sleek Colonnade hardtop the contemporary look appropriate for a GTO. Pontiac and Air Research engineers mustered all their accrued know-how to develop the Super Duty mills. The SD455 has a 65 horsepower edge over the 73 Chevy LS4 454. The SD366 has a 50 horsepower edge over the Chevy 350. The new SD455 is named in tribute to the 1960-63 Poncho Superstockers. Pontiac brazenly promotes it as a racing engine detuned for the street. The block has extra bracing in the lifter bores to prevent cracks. It has 4-bolt main bearing caps, a nodular iron crankshaft, forged steel connecting rods, forged aluminum pistons with high RPM rings, a heavy-duty oil pump, and provision for dry sump oiling. Instead of being forged, the crankshaft is cast, but surfaces are nitrided and journal fillets pressure rolled for nearly the same strength at a lower cost. Poncho engineers used Air Research Engineering's bench flow test findings from the 303 cubic inch Trans Am engine to develop both the NASCAR SD366 and drag racing SD455. The round port heads were enlarged for a consistent area with pushrod sleeves added for greater airflow than the Mopar 426 Hemi. It inhales through an 800 CFM carburetor on a tuned iron intake manifold and exhales through header-type iron exhaust manifolds and 2.5-inch exhaust pipes. The 288-degree intake duration and 302-degree exhaust duration camshaft used on the Ram Air 3 400 produces greater torque-making intake velocity in the 455 thanks to the extra vacuum provided by 55 more cubes. It bats out a prodigious 390 net foot-pounds at 3,600 RPM. The $368 GTO package is available on the basic $2,912 Le Mans or the $3,126 Le Mans Sport. The SD455 is a pricey $521 option available only on the Grand Am, GTO, and Firebird. Equipped without air conditioning or luxury gizmos, but with a posh stereo tape player, our 455 GTO test car was still priced $600 below the loaded 72 Grand Am we tested. Le Mans Sport bucket seats are lighter and thinner than Grand Am's reclining buckets and offer more rear seat legroom, which is at a premium in the 112-inch wheelbase G-body. Our 366 cubic inch test subject had the white ratio Muncie 4-speed transmission and a dual-plate clutch which cut pedal effort in half. It no longer claims a Hurst linkage, but worked flawlessly. It mates to the Hot 366 with great aplomb and was a joy to drive. The GTO lost its fancy snout last year when the slick polyurethane face transferred to the Grand Am luxury supercar. Le Mans' chrome steel bumper uses simple rubber jounce bumpers to meet the federally mandated 1975 2-mile-per-hour impact standard. It's cheaper, lighter, and simpler than Grand Am's color-keyed fascia with its hydraulic retractors. The instrument panel is simpler than the Grand Am and Grand Prix, but equally informative. Tachometer is big and right in front of you. The old hood-mounted tach was a gimmick and hard to read. There are only 3 nasals, with the middle one doing triple duty for fuel, heat, and oil pressure needles. The silver car had the fancier Grand Am steering wheel. Our silver GTO had the new 366 cubic inch engine. It's designed for NASCAR's new rules that put carburetor restrictor plates on the 7-liter engines, but let the 6-liter motors breathe free. The 366 was developed within director Herb Adams's Special Projects team, also known as Racing Team, by Tom Nell. He took the low-deck 303 cubic inch V8 Trans Am block, which replaced the 69-70 overhead cam 5-liter 6-cylinder, and repurposed it as a 6-liter NASCAR engine. Nell's freer-breathing, shorter-stroke, lower-friction 366 made the same torque and more horsepower than the 400, while delivering 10% better fuel economy. Though rated at 250 net horsepower, based on our acceleration results and the car's curb weight, we believe the 366 makes 340 gross horsepower. The 303 and 366 Pontiac small block, with its 9.137-inch deck height instead of Pontiac's traditional 10.24-inch deck, cuts 80 pounds of weight in concert with an aluminum intake manifold. It uses much smaller and lower friction 2.5-inch main bearings with 4 bolt caps. Like the SD455, it has a Ram Air 3 camshaft and the big 4.15-inch cylinder bore, but employs a short 3.375-inch stroke and rugged 6.08-inch connecting rods developed by Special Projects member Jeff Young. Though it costs the same as the SD455, it's a better value as it includes more expensive and exotic hardware. The high-strung 366 comes only with the 4-speed, mated to a 342 axle ratio. With the Trans Am's lighter engine, the GTO handles like a Trans Am, finally making the GOAT corner better than other GM supercars. We consider the SD366 GTO the best handling intermediate of the year, an accolade we've never conferred on previous GTOs. Although the wheel trim rings don't cost much and look good, they are flimsy. 2 of them flew off the 366 test car when we pushed it to its very high lateral G limits, so we took the other 2 off for subsequent photo shoots. Pontiac makes a triumphant return to NASCAR racing relevance, a role it hasn't played in nearly 10 years with its new Special Projects developed 366 V8. NASCAR racers will use Grand Am's slicker snout, which produces less aero drag. The 366 gets the heads of the 303 cubic inch Trans Am engine with even-spaced exhaust ports. It features iron equal-length header-type exhaust manifolds. It has a unique aluminum intake manifold tuned to resonate at high RPM and push through more air using sound waves. Since 1970, Ram air engines have employed valve and combustion chamber polishing to help them burn cleaner and meet EPA smog standards. Super Duty internals are similarly polished and get Pontiac's hand-selected matched parts for closer tolerances, better balance, and lower friction. The SD motors make power like blueprinted mills while remaining perfectly EPA legal. The high-energy electronic ignition of the Super Duties generates a hotter spark that never misses and makes spark plugs last up to 4 times longer. By providing more complete combustion, it improves efficiency and reduces smog. Thanks to the massive tires and safety track differential, the SD455 doesn't fruitlessly torch the rear tires off the line as the first GTOs did. We reached 60 miles per hour in under 6 seconds. That's a top-tier time that the heavier Grand Am couldn't match. It gave us a best quarter mile time of just 13.85 seconds at 103 miles per hour. The 366 did not have the safety track axle, but didn't particularly need it as the big tires made it easy to leave the line without wheel spin. The wide ratio 4-speed transmission keeps the 366 revving in the heart of the power band through every gear. You cross the traps turning 5,400 RPM in 3rd gear. The extra 63 cubes over the Trans Am 303 made it a tractable and streetable engine without the racing vices of the 303. With the same cam but a much shorter stroke and lower friction crankshaft bearings than the 455, it was much snappier from 4,000 to 5,500 RPM. It made 0 to 60 in 7 seconds and flirted with the 14-second barrier at 15.1 seconds at 92 miles per hour. Gas mileage, as expected, was nearly 3 miles per gallon better than the 455, which made only 12.2 miles per gallon in highway cruising. Despite being 60 horsepower short of the 455, the SD366 could get through our pylon course faster. We generated amazing lateral G numbers once the track dried off, on the order of 0.75 Gs. For a 3,900-pound intermediate, this is an amazing number. GM's recipe for great handling emphasizes massive sway bars and firmer shocks rather than brutally stiff springs. The GTO gets the same 1.25-inch front and 0.9375-inch rear anti-sway bars as the Grand Am, as opposed to the 1-inch front and 0.875-inch rear sway bars used in the 72 GTO. However, both test cars also had the firm ride package for a pittance of only $17, which includes thicker, higher rate coil springs as well. The lightweight 366 engine combined with the stiff Colonnade body yields a 54-46 front-to-rear weight distribution, better than any past GTO. The stiff and tight body also maintains an admirably isolated ride from harshness, squeaks, and rattles. The fat G60 tires and 15x7-inch rims are the best standard rubber the GTO has ever had, handily outgripping other GM supercars like the Olds 442 and Malibu SS, which use 14x7-inch wheels. Even with the heavier engine, the handling of our black 455 cube test car was still better than the 400 cubic inch 72 Grand Am we tested, thanks to the extra firm suspension. With far greater low-end torque than the 366, it was easier to break the rear tires loose by tromping on the go pedal in a bend, which placed the car in a tail-out oversteer posture. There was a time when tires were so bad and the car's body so flimsy, with suspension so tuned towards severe understeer, that breaking the tail out could get the car around certain bends faster. However, with the car's stiff body, firm shocks, and massive rear sway bars, there isn't much front-end push to overcome anyway, and keeping all tires close to their limit of adhesion without crossing the line is the best strategy for the speediest cornering. The 455's big advantage at the drag strip evaporated on the road course, and even its power brakes didn't prove an advantage in spirited driving, though they were a great relief to use in workaday motoring. Braking distances were surprisingly close, but front-end dive and rear lockup was appreciably less on the 366. Our small block test car had disc brakes standard, just like all GM G and A body intermediates, but it didn't have the power vacuum booster. The 366 engine can certainly run power brakes, and they only cost $45, but our early production model was unassisted. It's interesting to note that under panic braking and at the track, the unboosted discs were easy to use. Like with manual steering, unassisted braking provides better feel. Our shortest panic stop distance from 60 miles per hour was a mere 137 feet. That's excellent for any car, and it was very controlled and repeatable. But in regular driving, when the adrenaline wasn't flowing, we began to dread every stop sign and red light. In fairness, with the manual transmission, you can rely on shifting down for engine braking. Unless you want drag strip specials, trust us, get the power brakes. Why did we choose the GTO Super Duty, both the 366 and 455, as the car of the year over the Grand Am, which is also available with the SD engines? It's simple, really. The GTO status as a $368 option has become its strength, as you don't have to take all the expensive luxury padding of the Grand Am or even the Le Mans Sport, and thereby save on weight, and in the inflation age, sticker shock. It includes the dual exhaust 4-barrel 400 engine and big wheels and tires. For comparison, the $243 Chevelle SS option gets you only blackout trim, SS badges, two-tone paint, dual mirrors, and 14x7-inch rally wheels with G70 white letter tires and a rear sway bar. It requires at least a 350 cubic inch V8 engine, but the price doesn't include it. Overall, the Super Duty 366 and 455 GTOs are 73's hottest mid-size supercar choices. While other makes are retreating and canceling the hottest engines, Pontiac is filling the gap with detuned racing mills. Add in the excellent suspension and big sticky tires, combined with a quiet big car ride quality, and you get not just an excellent supercar, but a superior automobile. We're happy to report that the 10th edition of the GTO is the best yet.